Who is your greatest player of all time, and what's your all-time five, guys?
Oh man. I mean, it's MJ. It's MJ. I don't know about starting five. I gotta think it. I don't know.
What up, dude? You doing good? Hanging there. Stay healthy, man. Off the floor. Y'all kill me. Yeah.
Michael Jordan didn't just redefine basketball, he became the very measure of NBA greatness. Whenever a new star surfaces, fans and analysts alike ask the same question: could this be the next Jordan? Over the last few seasons, Luka Doncic seemed destined to carry that torch. By 25, he was dominating games with a brilliance that reminded old-timers of Jordan's early heroics. Then, out of nowhere, the Dallas Mavericks shipped Luka to the Los Angeles Lakers. This was more than a shocking transaction. It was a move so jarring that some are already comparing it to the most jaw-dropping twists in NBA history, right up there with Jordan's abrupt departures and legendary returns. So why in the world would any franchise let go of a player who was, in many ways, the face of their future? Some people will tell you it was about control, others say money, but just like every Jordan saga, there's always a deeper story, so let's dive in. When Luka Doncic left Dallas, fans reacted with the same disbelief Bulls fans felt the first time Jordan announced his retirement. This kind of departure just isn't supposed to happen. Luka was the Mavericks' crown jewel, the unstoppable force on offense, an all-NBA fixture, and a player who could seemingly drop triple-doubles at will. The day the news broke, the basketball universe went wild. Analysts on sports shows scrambled for an explanation. Was there friction behind the scenes? Were the Mavericks quietly dissatisfied with Luka's approach? Could it possibly be financial? Speculation blossomed like wildfire, but no one was entirely sure. What made it so unthinkable is how central Luka had become to Dallas's identity. If you stepped into the American Airlines Center during a game, the atmosphere revolved around him. Fans cheered his step-back threes like they once cheered Jordan's fadeaways in Chicago. Yet, after this bombshell trade, everything changed overnight. One theory that gained traction points to behind-the-scenes power plays. It mirrors stories from the 90s about the Bulls front office clashing with Jordan's enormous star power. Some believe Dallas executives felt overshadowed by Luka's influence. His stardom was growing so fast that he became more than just a player. He was the de facto face of the franchise, driving decisions at every level. The whispers suggested someone in upper management wanted to reassert control. Perhaps they grew tired of deferring to Luka's preferences, or felt that he was challenging their authority, or maybe they worried about a repeat of what the Bulls faced, a superstar overshadowing everyone else, even those who signed the checks. Instead of finding a way to mesh with Luka's presence, the Mavericks may have pushed him out, opting to tear down and rebuild on their own terms. It's the classic clash of star talent versus organizational hierarchy, something Jordan himself once battled in Chicago before the championships rolled in. The trade triggered a storm of reactions from NBA vets, many of whom consider Luka one of the few players who might have approached Jordan's all-time achievements if he stayed in the right situation. Matt Barnes didn't mince words, calling out Dallas's decision-making at the highest level. Paul Pierce openly questioned the franchise's direction and suggested that this trade could haunt them for years. These are guys who've lived the highs and lows of the NBA. They know it's rare to land a talent that draws Michael Jordan comparisons before age 25. They'd also understand if the Mavericks had an obvious reason, such as a failing roster or a locker room meltdown, but nothing that simple emerged. Instead, we got vague leaks and rumored justifications. From a player's point of view, trading a potentially transcendent star is akin to the Bulls letting Jordan walk away in his prime. It just doesn't happen unless something deeply personal or political is at play. As the dust settled, the theory that the Mavericks didn't want to pay Luka's supermax contract gained momentum, but critics saw that explanation as short-sighted. If Jordan proved anything, it's that true superstars are always worth the cost. You don't hesitate to break the bank for a once-in-a-generation player because the return on investment, both in wins and global recognition, tends to be astronomical. For a franchise to balk at paying its cornerstone is a giant red flag. Championship teams generally understand that high salaries are the price of greatness. If Dallas truly believed Luka was the second coming of Jordan, or even a rung below that, they wouldn't blink at the final bill. Could it be that finances were just an easy scapegoat? After all, letting a global icon walk away to save money seldom sits well with a fan base. Yet, that's the narrative some insisted on pushing. The Mavs weren't ready for the inevitable cost of keeping such a megastar. But it wasn't only about money. Soon after Luka left, reports emerged, casting doubt on his conditioning and discipline. The insinuation was that he wasn't a tireless gym rat like Jordan, who was notoriously ruthless about his training regime. Such claims quickly drew backlash. After all, if you're logging near 30-point triple-doubles, it's hard to paint you as lazy or uncommitted. Teammates and former coaches scoffed at the idea that Luka's fitness was holding him or the team back. They viewed this angle as an attempt to shift responsibility for the trade. Look how unstoppable he is, even with so-called average conditioning. Critics fired back. Imagine if he did start training like prime Jordan. The front office trying to pin everything on Luka's supposed lack of discipline sounded to many like a thinly veiled excuse to justify a move that made little sense on paper. In times like these, superstars often lash out at their former teams, especially when the rumor mill churns out negative gossip. However, Luka responded with the same confident calm that Jordan displayed in heated moments. He didn't hold a scathing press conference, didn't toss out cryptic social media posts, and never aired any dirty laundry. Instead, he quietly moved on, refusing to stoke the flames of controversy. Fellow players like Josh Hart marveled at Luka's restraint, pointing out how easy it would be for a freshly traded star to defend himself in the press. But Luka didn't need to. His resume speaks volumes, and in an era of 24-hour sports news cycles, silence can sometimes be the most powerful statement. While the Mavericks scrambled to spin the story, Luka simply shifted his focus to a new chapter, leaving many to wonder if Dallas had just made one of the biggest miscalculations in league history. Luka's father, Sasha Doncic, made his frustration clear when he saw his son's name being dragged through the mud. Much like James Jordan staunchly supported Michael during his early challenges, Sasha offered an unfiltered take on what he felt was a smear campaign. He insisted that if Luka could play at such a high level night in and night out, often logging 40 minutes under constant defensive pressure, he was obviously in adequate shape, suggesting anything else was just a way for Dallas to dodge accountability. Sasha criticized the Mavericks for resorting to character attacks rather than standing by their decision honestly and acknowledging they might regret letting go of a future Hall of Fame caliber player. This personal dimension only intensified the debate. Dallas wasn't merely cutting ties with a star athlete, they were damaging the trust and goodwill they'd built with the Doncic family. For many fans, that was the final straw. Michael Jordan taught us that legends don't fade quietly. They harness every ounce of doubt and turn it into overwhelming motivation. The same force might be at work in Luka Doncic. With the Lakers, he's surrounded by veterans who understand discipline and longevity, and he's got a new environment that might push him to surpass even his previous benchmarks. How dangerous could Luka become if he channels the negativity from Dallas into a fierce competitive drive? Picture him refining his training to Jordan-like levels, cleaning up whatever weaknesses critics once pinpointed, and unleashing an even more dominant version of himself. For the Mavericks, that prospect is terrifying. It means they haven't just lost a great player, they may have handed over a ticking time bomb set to explode into superstardom. The question isn't whether Luka will succeed elsewhere, it's whether he'll do so in a way that etches the trade into the books as one of the NBA's all-time blunders. Ultimately, the story behind Luka Doncic's departure from Dallas reads like an alternate universe take on the legend of Michael Jordan, except this time, the superstar was pushed out instead of stepping away on his own. Was it personal grudges, financial reluctance, insecurity over a young player's mounting influence? Whatever the reality, the result is the same. An entire city that once dreamed of championships built around Luka is left reeling, while fans worldwide are left baffled by the seeming lack of a rational explanation. The domino effect is already rippling through the league as other teams wonder what truly went down in Dallas. The greatest NBA players, from Jordan to Kobe to LeBron, often rely on a moment of betrayal or doubt to kickstart their most dominant years. Now Luka Doncic has his own version of that story. Whether you cheer for him or not, one thing's undeniable. The Mavericks have gifted Luka an extra layer of motivation. As he forges a new legacy in Los Angeles, everyone's waiting to see if his next act will echo the unstoppable triumphs of Jordan's heyday, and whether Dallas will spend the next decade regretting the day they let him walk.